Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever time it is. How are you doing? Welcome to another live coaching. I am broadcasting from Maui. Where are you? Say hi in the chat. Let us know, did you sail this week? If so, how was it? Did you not sail this week? Where are you? I sailed. I sailed here. I've got some video somewhere. Let me pull it up. Here's my video. Let me see if this works. So I'm back on Maui and I've had a lot going on just in general in my life over the last year or two. I made the decision this year not to compete. My family is growing. I've got a 6 year old, and my younger one is almost three. And it's interesting what's going on with my windsurfing relative to the other things going on with my life. And talking to a lot of you, it seems like around this time in your lives, windsurfing had to go on the back burner. You had to take a little break from the windsurfing and focus on your family, focus on your career. Now, windsurfing is my career, but at the same time, I feel all of these different pressures coming in and making it harder to focus on the water. And one of the things that this has really made me realize, especially about Hokipa, because I was just in South Africa in January and I didn't have similar feelings there. But at Hokipa, the timing is so critical. The wave selection is so critical, and it's these minutia of decisions that where my focus is a little bit off, and just a little bit off, I notice it in my performance quite considerably. And so when I watch this footage, I'm making just a few little errors of timing or wave selection that I wouldn't normally make, and that can be really frustrating for me. And so, how do I get around that? How do I deal with a a slump, right? And I think that this is relevant. I'd love to hear from you guys, um, if you've had a similar experience, if you've had a slump where you feel like your sailing has dropped down or you're not able to focus as much as you want to, and then how you've dealt with that, if it's mattered or not. I mean, it might not matter. I mean, for me, windsurfing is my career, so it matters a lot. I mean, it's more than a career. It's something I've really dedicated my life to learning and mastering. It's like this way, for example, I just totally screwed up the timing on that. And again, that's not something that would normally happen with me. So I go a little bit too early on this first turn. So if I had gone just a little bit later, then I would have come down with more speed from there. Um, had Again, better timing on this section, and then because I would have had more speed, I would have been able to make the third session. And instead, I was too early on the first two and then late on the third one. So how am I dealing with that? One of the things is I'm trying to crash. And this is something that's come up on the different masterclass weeks, where when you get stuck in a rut, this can be when you're stuck on a plateau, or it can be when you're stuck and just not having a lot of fun with your sailing. You feel like your sailing is not at the level where it should be, and trying to fall is a really good exercise. You set your watch 20 minutes, you're just trying to fall. You're hitting the lip, you're going for things where you're pretty sure you're going to fall. And the exercise is to intentionally fall for 20 minutes. And that can be really fun, and it's really therapeutic for getting your mind refreshed, because then you're not putting all this pressure on yourself for falling or not performing how you expect to perform. And the second thing that I do is I focus on the minutia, on the small things. So I try to focus on having one good turn or one good move, and just that moment of being on the rail. So for example, I think it's I think it's this turn. I really enjoyed this feeling of being on the rail, and this turn was enough for me to carry the session. And I've had a few other turns I was happy with, but this one in particular where I was really staying on the rail longer than longer than normal. So like I'm on the rail here and then pushing a little bit harder, staying on the rail all the way to there, coming into the next bottom turn. And so that moment then was a highlight for me. There's a few other ones, again, trying to go for it. And what that means for me is going to be um, different for you. So here, a few other ones. So I talked about two different strategies already. So one is having the time where you're just crashing, just going for it, just crashing. The second is focusing on just a particular moment, getting a particular high five, getting a particular moment of carve. And so it's this really small focus. Um, there's another one that I was happy with. This is you can't tell, but it's a one-handed turn. I really love these turns, how they feel. Dropping that backhand, great exercise, getting on the rail and just driving and really focusing on the one turn, not trying to get two turns, trying to just get that moment of carve. And it's not even about the whole turn. It's just focusing on this moment of carve that can then sustain me for the session. The hold on one second. It's on the counter right there. Just had to give my wife the car key. So then the third thing is focusing on just flowing with the wave without paying attention to the quality of turns. So not trying to do really hard turns, but just trying to flow with the wave, pick up speed from the wave, make a series of contacts with the lip or just a series of turns where you're able to feel the flow with the ocean. And so those three things are really helpful. And there's a fourth thing that I want to bring up in a second. Uh, but first, I got to get to the chat. We got a lot of you guys here, and I got to say hello. We got Axel. Axel has been on the snowboard. Tamaj, how is your injury? We got Jorg in Sweden had a freestyle session. Nice. New sales on the freestyle board. Awesome. We've got Matt in the UK. Hello, Matt. Rasmus in Hamburg. Moin, moin. He sailed flat water. Finger hurt even after. Ouch. Yeah, it's cold in Hamburg at the moment. Axel had a great session. Winter is definitely over. Ragnar says he also had some time when he was off the water with kids, and now he's back and motivated. Greg. Hello, Greg. Welcome, Greg. Suna had a great spot yesterday. Suna, you have been getting on the water. I am very impressed for your winter dedication. Suna is in he was in one of our master classes, and there's a WhatsApp group for it. And I see the pictures that he keeps posting. He's scoring all through the winter up in Denmark. I love it. Right on, Greg. Tomas is on the rehab. We got Graham in South Africa, 42 to 37. Strong southeaster winds in Cape Town. Awesome. All right, so the fourth thing that I want to talk about in terms of what to do when you're in a slump or on a plateau. So I talked about some on the water techniques, right? And again, I want to hear from you guys. So if you've been in a slump or you've had a time where you feel like your windsurfing either isn't as fun or you're not performing at the level you expect to perform, what have you done? And so just to go back through the three things that we already mentioned. One is having a fall session, focusing on falling. Two is really narrow focus, where you're focusing on moments of carve and not even the full turn. It can be, a meter of carving in your bottom turn or clean carving in the cutback where your rail is doing exactly what you want it to do for that split second. And that intense focus is enough. Three is flowing with the waves and not worrying about the technique, but just really flowing with the waves. Okay, those are all on the water. Now, four, I heard something recently that I thought was really interesting. They're saying that maintenance is not a goal. And so this relates to what you're doing on the water, relates to what you're doing in the gym, that just maintaining is not a goal. And so if you have some kind of goal in mind, help with your motivation to keep pushing yourself and to have more fun. So it helps with the motivation and with the fun factor. And so that could mean with your windsurfing, it could mean training for an event, or it could be trying to learn a specific move like the forward loop, or improving your tack consistency, or trying to learn the aerial, uh, or training to compete in an amateur wave event. So having these goals can really help keep you motivated rather than just general maintenance where you're saying, okay, I'm just going to go windsurfing for an hour or 2 hours because it's fun or it's something I do, keeps me fit. Um, and I really like that way of thinking. In my career so far, because I've been competing for most of it, I've had very obvious goals of the different World Cups. Okay, I've got to train for Pozo, I've got to train for Silves, I've got to train for Hokipa. These are the things I need to do to win an event or to do well in an event. And yeah, it's interesting now that I'm not focused on competing on what my goals are, and I wonder what your goals are as well. So I know that all of you guys do have some goal. Maybe you don't, but if you do, what are they? It could be about forward looping. It could be about learning aerials. It could be about a competition that's coming up. It could be something else. That's I want to hear. All right, I'm going to get into the Facebook group. So Rasmus says that as he's gotten older, he's gone away from uncontrolled jumping, trying to improve his technical approach. Nice. We got Nico in the chat. Hello, Nico. Rasmus says, as he gets older, oh, this is the same comment. Yep. Makes sense. All right. I'm going to load up the Facebook group and we're going to get into the coaching. And I still want to hear from you guys stories about what you do when you get in a slump, and also what your goals are. So if you have goals, and if you don't have goals, if you haven't thought about having a goal for the year or the season, and you're thinking about it now for the first time, brainstorm with us. What are you thinking? What could your goals be? And the goals can be big or small. It could be about going from 5 out of 10 tacks to 8 out of 10 tacks. It could be about learning the forward loop, or it could be about trying to pass a heat at the upcoming British Wave Sailing Association event. There's a whole spectrum of what the goals could be, and I want to hear what they are. Eric says Flaka and forward. Awesome. All right, I'll get the Facebook group up. Those are good goals. The very different goals. The Flaka and the forward are, in a way, opposite moves to learn. The forward, though it's technical, is really mental. The Flaka, less mental. It's easy to try, but boy, is it technical. It's such a technical move to learn. And yeah, I love it. So let's keep track of the journey, Eric. I think making a plan for these moves is good. I'll release some stuff this spring that will help. All right, Greg is saying the forward for him, he's had some injuries and he's getting fit for it. Awesome. One of my goals, not water related, is getting more online content to help you guys with your journeys. That's something that I'm going to do here on Maui. Get some courses up. Eric says flat water flockas, wavy days forward. Awesome. Hey, Hans, had a birthday session. Happy birthday. So Tomas is saying that his goals are more travel related. I like that. I've had some of these goals too. I remember I saw this photo of Bujma in Madagascar doing a backloop over some rocks, and I thought, I have to go there. And That was a bucket list goal. I have a few other bucket list travel goals too. Norway, which I haven't done. I would really, really like to sail at Lista. Um, yeah, I like the idea of a travel goal. I'm one of the things that I'm going to do today, actually, after this live stream, is release some surveys and dates for some of the master classes that I'll be doing this year. Denmark, Maui, a few others. And then I'm going to ask as well about interest in some exotic locations. You know, if we're, for example, going to Madagascar, is that something that you would be interested in? Um, all right. Axel says he's working on his. Hans says lee side riding in port tech conditions to go regular foot down the line upwind. Awesome. I like it. Herman sailing with Klaas and Lista. Yeah. Max, low wind sail this week. Those sessions can be good. One of the courses that I'm working on is about what you can do in light wind or tiny waves. All right, let's jump into the Facebook group. But first up, we've got another goal from Rasmus. Rasmus says, first goal is to be in the moment and not get bothered by conditions. Just adjust, but harder to do than anything. Then adjust, plan for moves according to the conditions, but still trying to improve. Cool. It could be good if you have a something that's more binary, more black and white to determine the goal. So it could be like, how do I measure how adjusted I am to the conditions? And it could be something like, I got 2 turns on a wave, and that's the goal. Or I hit the lip 5 times in a day, that's the goal. Or something like that. But if this goal here is really clear for you, then that's enough, I guess. Suna says, the biggest motivation in the winter comes from the small group of surf buddies. Casa G. Yeah, cool. Having friends, having a community is really, really important, especially because windsurfing is such a solo sport. So having that community can be really helpful and motivating. Definitely understand. All right, Axel says, here are 2 pictures of me riding small waves on my Devil's Tack. Axel, you have improved so much on your port tack. I don't know if you can call it Devil's Tack anymore. I don't know if you're allowed to. He says, my thoughts, rail engagement looks okay. During bottom turns and side off conditions, I tend to forget sheeting out the sail. I should get my butt lower in the top turn instead of pulling on the sail and extending my front leg. This is in Bologna. So when we're looking at the body position here, we're looking at, all right, how much bend is there in the knees? How much bend at the waist? Where's the head looking? We're getting some good bend. There's not too much ankle flex. We don't want to see a lot of ankle flex. There's the back foot, there's quite a bit, but that's kind of normal, especially when you're on a slightly bigger board. We could see a little bit more forward lean at the hips, but in general, this body position looks really solid. Same with this, actually. I mean, you're getting that high five. The board is angled. Yeah, you say your butt could be lower, but the butt's pretty low. You're getting the corner pocket section. This looks all really good, I think. Like I said, I don't know if you can call this your devil's tack anymore. Uh, the bottom turn here, you could have a wider grip on the boom. We can't exactly see where this hand is, but having a wider grip in your bottom turn gives you more control, makes it just easier. When you're gripping wider in the bottom turn, it just works better. You could get a little bit lower, but in general, this looks really solid. This looks really solid. What I would say is do more of it. If you want to focus on one thing, actually, it wouldn't be the hand, even though the hand is definitely something that wide grip. When I say hand, I mean the backhand is definitely something that you'll find helpful. But the other thing is something that we talked about last week, which is focusing on doing more of a U. And so here we can see in your line that you're coming up for the cutback that it's very straight. And what we want to see is a little bit more of a U. And so that's one of the progressions that we can work towards, is getting more of a U. And that starts with wanting it. It starts with expecting it. So instead of looking with your head somewhere off the page over here, you're looking somewhere right in front of you. When you're setting up at the top of the wave and you're planning where you're going to bottom turn, you're looking. So let's go back to my video and let's see if there's an example here. So here I'm not doing much of a U, than I would like. Let's see. Let's see if this is more of a U. So I'm looking here at a spot where I'm gonna hit the lip, and you can't really tell in this video exactly where I'm looking. But here in the middle of the bottom turn, you can see that my head is not looking down here anymore. It's not looking down the line. It's looking back up the wave. And so if we compare that to this picture, because of the helmet and the angle, we can't see exactly where you're looking, Axel, but it looks like you're looking somewhat down the line. And if we compare that to here, and okay, it's not a completely fair comparison, but oops, I got to go back. Not a completely fair comparison, but it gives you an idea. So I'm dropping in and I'm looking at one place on the wave. So I've already chosen by the time I'm here, I've chosen where I'm going to go on the wave. And I'm looking at that place. And as I'm adjusting, as I'm going through the turn, my head keeps looking at that same place. So I'm looking up right where that wave is breaking. And you can see that I'm looking at it with my head the whole time. And okay, this is a 360, not a cutback. But the concept is the same. The concept is the same. Let's see if there's another example. I don't think that there really is in this footage. I'm doing also more long, drawn-out turns in most of this. But that is the next step, Axel. And it starts with just wanting it. It starts with the head, just wanting it. And when you're dropping into the wave, so the very beginning, you're thinking about going to a spot for your cutback that's a lot closer to you than where you're going now. And that would be the first step, is and just having that intention will go a long way. And then we can work on technique after that. So Rasmus says, have the mass more in front during the end of the bottom turn to be able to tighten the turn into the lip. It also anticipates the rig being in the front while top turning with this small wave. That could also be the case, but I think for getting that U-shaped bottom turn, the intention is everything. And once you have the intention, we can work on the small aspects of technique, but without the intention, the technique doesn't matter. And so it starts when you're dropping into the wave and you're not thinking about going to a spot 20 meters away, you're thinking about going to a spot that's 4 meters away on the wave, or less, 3 meters away. All right, we've got a question from Ralph. He wants to replace his Zetas. Are there any differences compared to the new Zetas? No, there are not. The Zeta has stayed the same for a few years. It is a 5-batten wave sail that Ezzy makes, and we're really happy with how it performs, and so there's not been a reason to make any changes on it. So no. We've got Nicholas. He has been following the group since the beginning, but not very active. This is his first post in about 2 years. He lives in Ibiza, where you don't have consistent conditions, and you can end up on the rocks if you fall on the first section. He's changed his boards recently. He's happy with the change. He's got a Quattro Pyramid 82 and a Taboo de Curve 96. And he's focusing on improving his wave riding. All right, let's make this full screen. Nico's in the chat. Hello, Nico. All right, I'm going to make this full screen. And okay, so looking down the line, we like that, setting up on the wave. So my first instinct is that this is a little bit early. Setup turn. Setup turns are good, though. They get you in the rhythm. And then I know that this spot, if you fall in the beginning, you end up on the rocks. And so we want to be really, really careful here. I love that you're able to get so many turns. This looks like a really fun spot. I bet most people watching this don't know that Ibiza gets such good conditions. This is awesome. I mean, down the line, beautiful fun waves. It looks amazing. So my first comment is that it's not even about the technique, it's about the wave selection. And in general, we want to avoid waves that are whitewater waves. Hold on. So in general, we want to avoid waves that are whitewater waves. And there are a few reasons for this. And so by whitewater wave that has whitewater in the face, like this one has. Now, it doesn't have whitewater in the face at the beginning, but by the middle of the wave ride, it does. And there are a few reasons for this. One is that the wave is bumpier. It has more air in the water, which makes it more likely to spin out. Two, it's harder to see. It's the way the light reflects off the wave looks flatter. It's hard to see what's going on. And three, white smaller. And in this particular spot, that means it's going to be breaking closer to the rocks, farther in, and it's going to be possibly more dangerous. And so I would suggest getting a bigger wave, and it's going to break farther away from the rocks. It's going to give you a little bit more space, a little bit more comfort. So the first point that we're getting into is the wave selection. The wave selection is huge, 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 huge. All right, let's look a little bit at the technique, and then we're going to go into the next wave rides. The first thing that I notice here is nice wide grip. Nice wide grip on the boom that gives you a lot of control, moving the hand forward on the cutback. You like to see it. Nice rhythm. Bam, bam, bam on the cutbacks. Everything looks very snappy. So the main comment is about the wave selection. All right, let's watch wave number two. Coming in, checking out what's going on. Also a lot of whitewater. There's just always a lot of whitewater on this spot. Ooh, that was a nice carve. Let's watch that again. So here, board is carving nicely. There's one technical point that will help Nico. So you see how your hips and knees are turning into the turn? In the cutback, we actually want to avoid that. This is counterintuitive. It feels like you do want to angle everything into the turn because that's the direction you're going. But if we think about how the board is actually working, that doesn't make sense. The way that the board works is heel to toe. It's not working laterally. And so what you want to be doing is focusing all of that energy onto your heels. And by angling towards the nose of the board and trying to turn it laterally, side to side, we're actually taking away power from the heels, which makes the cutback less powerful. And so if you really focus on staying square with the board, so straight with the board, so you're not angling towards the nose of the board and getting on those heels and using your feet like levers, like crowbars to get the board on the rail, you're going to end up with a much more dynamic carve. I like how these bottom turns are looking. You're getting really snappy up the top. You're getting a nice U-shaped turn Um, this is beautiful, this turn. Do more of this. This is exactly what you wanna be doing. If you combine this with a wave that has a little bit more power, so going a little bit later, it's gonna push you more into the cutback. So in this example, you struggle a little bit coming out of the cutback, but the bottom turn going into it is exactly what we wanna see. You're carving tight and hard, doing a good U semicircle. You're getting the hand motion, you're getting the sail motion. Everything is there in the technique on the bottom. And in the cutback, there's a little bit of a struggle, but it's less to do with you and more to do with the wave, which does have to do with you because you're obviously choosing the timing. So if you're going a little bit later, that's gonna work a lot better. All right, let's watch wave number 3. Like the wind has come up. There's a little bit more wind on this wave. Let's see how that affects your session. We're going a little bit later. It looks like there's a little bit more confidence with more wind. It looks like we're a little bit behind the section, which we like to see. You've got enough wind to get around the whitewater. Nico, how comfortable are you hitting these sections? You're good enough. You can do an off the lip on this section. This, when it's coming at you, is the easiest section to get the timing right. And all you've got to focus on is getting that board bottom so it's presented to the whitewater and it gives you a high five, knocks you back in front of the wave. And it is definitely something that you are good enough to do. All right, here looks like the wind is still up. You've got a lot of power, more power than in the first two waves. Like a little tricky to get the timing right. Like we're going a little bit later. Boom, there we're going for an off the lip. It's just a little bit early. All right, number 5. Number 5, let's see. All right. Okay, so if we're gonna focus on 2 things, the first thing is your placement and selection on the wave, and make sure that you're going when it's steep enough so that these nice bottom turns that you're doing are coming up into a section with power, and then the wave can do the work for you in the cutback. And then the second thing is in the cutback, less thinking about turning the board nose to the beach and more thinking about just getting on the heels so that you're getting the board on that rail and then it will do the work for you. All right, we got Ryan in Makawao. Aloha, Ryan. Welcome to the chat. Yeah, Axel saying this is awesome. I didn't know Ibiza was that good. I didn't either. Nico saying it's difficult to score a good day. Um, so Nico's saying, where is the whitewater? You're almost in the rocks. Okay, good to know. Um, and there's no wind at the end of the wave because of the buildings. And this would be a good one to hit because there'd be no rocks. Okay. And so Hans is saying that thinking of the cutback like a heel side carve on the snowboard was helpful for him. And I can really understand that. And again, you want to think about going toe to heel to turn the board, not about turning it left to right. So you're not turning side to side, you're going toe to heel. And that's how the board is designed to turn. And so for the cutbacks, instead of trying to steer it back to the beach, just getting it on the rail and pushing against it is going to drive it around into the turn. We've got some more footage from Nico coming up, but first we have a question from Facebook. Any recommendations for a good knee brace for a partially torn MCL injury? Where are you? Are you in the States or are you in Europe? I do have some recommendations for companies that make good knee braces. When I had my MCL injury, which was a severe tear of my MCL, I did a lot of physical therapy, really, really intense physical therapy. And when I was on the water, I was wearing it was more of a sock than a brace, uh, because I didn't want to become reliant on the brace. But there are really good braces that are made, and I know that there are a lot of people who ride them. My friend Flo Young, for example, always rides with a knee brace. There are a lot of pros that ride with knee braces, and there are a few companies that make them that make really high level knee braces, and I'll post that in the comments. Rasmus has the tip that he would put more pressure on the back leg while top turning to get the rail and fins more set. Rail digs a little bit, a more rectangle, less twist in the legs. It helps. Yeah, basically what we're trying to do is get the board on the rail rather than being flat. So we don't want it flat and turning. We want it on its side and carving. And if you have that in mind, it's a lot easier to do. All right, we've got a few more videos. Awesome. Yeah, snappy. So this is a different view. Snappy cutbacks. All right, let's watch the next video. Beautiful spot. There's a little bit more wind. Beautiful spot. Are these the same waves that we saw before, or are they different waves? I think these are the same waves that we saw before. And so this section is a great one to hit, like we already talked about when we saw the. All right, let's watch this, see if there's any update to our coaching. Let's go through this couple. Getting some rail there. I don't know if this is just a change in the angle or these are different waves, but it does look like there's more rail use going on from this angle. All right, let's see. I think we got one more clip. Oh, now we're back to the beginning. All right, so Nico, how helpful is that? Do you feel like you have a solid set of things to work on? Uh, do you have a solid set of things to work on? All right, let's move on. And then, Nico, if you have further questions, ask them in the chat. All right, next up, we've got a post from Moritz. But first, Greg is saying that his MCL injury is half a year ago. Beach bum extraordinaire. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the live coaching. Yes, it is a beautiful spot. I think we've got to go there. All right, next up, we've got Moritz. Moritz is a friend of mine and one of my favorite windsurfers to watch in Gran Canaria. I would say that Moritz and Casper are my favorite windsurfers to watch when I'm in Gran Canaria. Coster is just a beast. He dominates in the air and on the waves. Moritz, a little bit more subtle, but he has his own approach to wave riding there, and I really love watching it. Some nice turns and speed. I love how active he is in this. So let's read what Moritz says. So he says he had a good run of swell for 5 or so days. He was trying out a board that he hasn't used for a few years, so it's an old board. He was struggling a lot to ride it smooth, as it's different than what he's been using lately, but he managed to get one nice wave. So this is the wave with some nice turns. It's a good reminder to go out of your comfort zone and try something new. Yeah, I totally agree. So I think this advice works for pros, but also for everyone else as well. And trying new equipment really helps you improve your ability because you get stuck into a certain way of riding on whatever board you're on. And by switching it up, it forces you to adjust your technique, and that can help you get off the plateau and feel more more dynamic and alive on the wave. I really like this. Right. Thank you for sharing, Moritz. All right, next up, we've got a question from Jenny Surf. He has a waveboard that's 92 liters, and he weighs 80, and he would like to transform it to a twin fin for light wind conditions, 17 or 18 centimeter fins. I think 17. I think 17 fins. Some people are saying 16. That might be too small. I would say that 18 is definitely too big. I would go between 16 and 17 scorchers for your twin fin. So Greg is saying that on his MCL injury, it's taken half a year to recover, but he's feeling back to normal. He started with cycling. So with my injury, I had a severe MCL tear. I had a tibial plateau fracture and bone bruising, and I had some MCL tearing as well. It was from an impact coming down from a back loop off the lip. And so it was a pretty severe injury. It took me, I think it was about 6 months before I was back on the water again, and I was doing physical therapy with a trainer for 5 days a week. So I was 5 days a week with a trainer doing exercises, doing therapy to get strong again in my knee. And I was back, so the injury happened in the spring. I was back on the water in September and still felt a little shaky, and I felt a little shaky for a few months. It probably took me about a year before I felt fully confident again in my knee. Uh, yeah, can be a difficult injury. All right, so we've got a post from Tomas looking at different rail work. So we've got two different riders here. The one on the left is Cowley Ciati, one of the best wave riders ever on a windsurfer. And on the right, we have a German kid who has been putting in a lot of hard work on Maui and has really improved a lot. I'm really impressed. He and his brother both have been sailing a lot. They're two kids from Kiel, and they've been spending the winters on Maui this year and last year. And they're out when it's big, mast and a half, doesn't matter. They've been charging, and I've been really impressed. But as we can see in this example, this is what mastery looks like on the rail. The board is fully on the rail. It looks like it's 90 degrees to the surface of the water. Full carve, and here we've got the flat board. But this takes years and years. This is the goal. All right, next up, we've got a post from Nick. Nick was in the original Learn to Loop class that I did online, and he in that class was learning on loops on Portac, and now he's taking that knowledge and transferring it to StarboTech. These are his first StarboTech loops. Look at this, Nick. Beautiful. That is a beautiful loop. Nick, if you're in the chat or you're watching this after, I would love to hear a little report about what it was like learning the loop on the new tack. How was the process different than learning it on Portac? For some people, it can be harder because it's so foreign on their bad tack, and for some people, it can be easier because they already know how to do it, and so then the process is accelerated. Beautiful little horizontal loop. Uh, I love to see it. Beautiful, really, really beautiful. Yeah, and then the second question, which you've answered a little bit here, how does learning to loop on your other tack help your loops on your first tack, on your good tack? It seems like you're saying that they have helped your loops on the other tacks. Your port tack loops have improved from learning them on starboard tack, which makes sense. Yeah, I'd love to see it. Awesome. All right. Just like that, we are caught up. There's one thing I saw in the comments on this. So looks like there was a little bit of comment war going on where it sounds like Adrian is a bit angry at Marco for some of the wave priority etiquette going on in Cape Town. My recommendation is to talk about it. Every spot has different rules, and oftentimes people who travel to a new spot assume that they know how the rules work, And people who live at a spot assume that the people coming there know how the rules work, but that's not the case. Rules are different everywhere you go, and the onus is on the traveler. So the person traveling has the responsibility to talk with the locals to learn about how the rules work. In some places, the first person on the wave has priority. In some places, the person more upwind has the priority. Now, the upwind rule does not work everywhere. Hokipa, for example, it's not about who's more upwind. It's about who's on the swell first. And sometimes we get people coming here for the first time, and we've got Levi or one of these locals who's on a wave from Japan. They've caught the swell so early, and a tourist drives upwind and they try to claim the wave. No, that's not how it works. But in other places, that is how it works. And so talking with the locals, figuring out how it works is really important. Some places in Australia, there's a rotation system. So you're taking turns taking waves. And then in that system, especially if you don't know how it works, you're either going to be stealing waves or not getting waves. And so it's important whenever we're traveling to a new spot to talk with the locals, ask how the priority rules work, show up with respect. And if you are a local at a spot, and this is something I've had to learn, I think, too aggressive with people when I was younger because I, again, assumed that they knew how it worked. And so then by acting in a way how it doesn't work, I assumed that they were just being rude or didn't care. But the reality is, a lot of times people just don't know how it works. So as a local, it's also your job to show up with respect. Now, not everyone is respectful back. But I think it's important to start with respect and come from a place where you want to educate. So if you're a local at a spot, it's important to educate the people who are coming. And if you're traveling, it's important to be educated. Uh, Now, with that said, and this is maybe a controversial take, I think it is important to have a certain amount of enforcement at a spot. And if you don't have any enforcement, then it turns into chaos. And so there are a few people who take the role of enforcer. It seems to happen sort of naturally at most spots. And if someone is really out of line, not respecting the rules, then the enforcer steps in. And some people don't like that, say it's localism. But I think it has its place because we're all trying to get along on the water, and the rules help make it work, the priority rules. If there's one person who's going out in the wrong place or catching all the waves, then it can mess it up for everyone else. Tomas is saying wind rule is in use. I'm not sure either, but I'm sure there are places where it is in use. I feel like in Cabo Verde and Punta Preta, people like to go off the upwind rule, which kind of makes sense because the more upwind you are, the more set up you are for the whole wave. Um, that's the first thing that comes to mind. Rasmus is saying Glass Beach and Fuerte. So I think some really pure down the line spots, the upwind rule is more relevant. In Pozo, if you talk to some of the really hardcore locals, there are really specific priority rules. So Daida, Dario, these guys, there's a certain peak that's not the peak off the bunker. It's the next peak upwind. And according to that local priority, whoever is nearest that peak. So you can already be turning on the wave coming from the bunker. And according to these rules, if someone jives on that peak in the middle, it's their wave, even if you're already riding it, which always seemed a little bit strange to me. But again, I want to respect the local rules and learn them. And every spot has its own. Every spot has its own rules. So what's really important is communication, talking to a few people, figuring out how it works and how to be respectful. And then also not to be, again, too serious about it. I think that often people can get really aggressive about it, and doesn't need to be um, that aggressive. And I can also get too aggressive. I think that there's a when you're on the water, the mindset that you're in is not the logical mindset that you're in on the beach. And when you're thinking about hitting the lips and putting yourselves in these dangerous, explosive, dynamic situations, it's not the most rational mindset. And so I totally understand getting really emotional and aggressive and yelling over a priority issue, because you're in a different brain set than you are when you're on the beach talking about these things. So I also understand getting really emotional about it as well. Uh, all right, we are at the end of the material. What I am going to do after this, so over the next hour, so expect it posted within the hour, I'm going to be posting about masterclass courses, in-person masterclass courses that are happening this year. It will not be the exhaustive list, so there might be other ones that happen, but there is going to be a course on Maui, and there will be some courses in Denmark and a couple other places, and I'm going to post information about those courses in the next hour. So look out for that. I will send it first to the email list, and then I will post it in the Facebook group and also on YouTube. There's a place I can post it. So look out for that. If you are interested in joining an in-person coaching course with me this year, I will be posting information about that within the next hour. And again, there might be some more courses that pop up over the year, but these are ones that are going to happen for sure. And it's time to start planning them. All right, everyone, have a good week. I hope to see you next week, Sunday. I hope it's windy for you and you can get on the water. If you do get some photos, videos, questions, post them in the Facebook group, and we will go over them in the live coaching next week, Sunday. Have a great week, everyone. Take care and goodbye.